I'll just remind everyone that there is a Gaggle forum as well. So if there is anything you come across that will be useful information to those supporting adaptive platform trials, any resources or tools, anything, please put them in the Gaggle forum so we can have that information in one place. That would be great. Okay, on that note, I might hand it over to you, Laura. She's a clinical trial manager and project manager based with Melbourne Children's Trial Centre and the Murdoch Children's Research Centre or Institute in Melbourne, Australia. MSRI is currently establishing an institutional governance framework to support adaptive platform trials. So Laura's role is trying to bring that together with different units and research teams across the Institute in order to successfully deliver adaptive platform trials at MCRI. So she has a wealth of knowledge. Today, Laura is going to present on TMFs for adaptive platform trials, a dynamic systematic approach to document management. So Laura, I believe you have your slides ready to go. Do you want to put them up?
Yeah, sure thing. Please let me know if you can see these.
Perfect, I can see them.
All right, should I get started?
Yep, go for it.
Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about essential record management for clinical trials with a focus on platform trials as well. This is a brief agenda of what I'm going to chat through. It's really informal, so if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or we can have question time at the end. But I'll go through a bit of background, GCP considerations, particularly with the change from R2 to R3, some TMF standards, some requirements to consider when developing or maintaining a platform trial TMF, and then of course MCRI's approach, and we'll look at Florence eBinders because that is the platform that we use to manage all of our essential records. So move on. So a bit of background. So essential record management, as you all know, is the foundation of clinical trials, ensuring regulatory compliance, data integrity, and protection of all participant rights. It essentially involves a systematic organisation, storage and retrieval of documents throughout the trial's life cycle. So this is through from the initial trial design phase all through to final reporting, and then of course trial closeout. Essential records permit and contribute to the evaluation of the conduct of the trial in relation to the compliance of the sponsor and also the site investigator with GCP. It is a mandatory requirement for GCP. Sponsors must maintain essential or adequate essential records throughout the life cycle of the trial. And they are also used as part of the investigator oversight and the sponsor's oversight of the trial. And this includes monitoring. So essential record management for APTs require a specialised, flexible and dynamic TMF structure that exceeds the requirements of a traditional static study. So given that APTs operate under a master protocol with multiple shifting interventions that enter and leave the trial, and also you need to account for different countries and also sites participating in different countries, different domains. Therefore, the TMF must be designed to accommodate continuous and dynamic documentation. So we're all aware of the recent changes to ICH GCP E6R3, and these next few slides I've really just cherry picked the main changes that relate to essential document or essential record management, and these are displayed on this slide and the next. So the main thing to note is there's been a terminology change. So in R2, it was essential documents, and in R3, we've now changed, there's a shift in terminology and definition to essential records. R3 also recognises that essential records, including source documents, may exist outside of the TMF and or ISF and the repositories that are used to keep these documents, and requires that sponsors and investigators keep track of document locations and also version history. And an example of that might be an electronic screening log where throughout the trial conduct, your screening records are maintained electronically. However, then it needs to be noted in the TMF in your screening section, that those logs are maintained electronically and will be available via whichever platform that they're stored in, whether that be a note to file or some kind of index that says these are the records that do not exist in this filing structure at the moment, and will appear there at the end of the trial. There's been some updates to the appendices. The main one there is Appendix 3, which lists all of the essential records for the conduct of a clinical trial, which are expected to be visible or present in your trial master file and your investigator site file. And also some of the investigator responsibilities have been better defined and things removed and added. So, for example, they've removed the number of years for retention of essential records and added that the investigator should keep the sponsor informed of the name of the person responsible for maintaining that essential record during the retention period. So this is the archiving phase and so forth. So basically that means that any investigator site file at site for studies that or sites that participate in your trial, sponsors need to know where that is archived during the retention period. And one of the biggest changes has been around computer system validation. And the reason why this is on here is because there is a big move to maintain your essential records electronically, either via platforms such as Florence eBinders or SiteDocs or others. And so therefore, when using those systems and when sponsors are selecting those systems, we need to ensure that those systems are validated in alignment with GCP. So that would be the main changes to consider between R2 and R3 for essential record management. Okay, so what are the standards for trial master file? So standards and harmonisations are key when managing or maintaining essential records. The trial master file reference model provides a standardised taxonomy and metadata for organising clinical trial documents and ensuring audit readiness and compliance with GCP. So the TMF reference model is the most widely recognised framework for organising the TMF. It consists of 11 high-level zones and over 600 artefacts or documents that are meant to be maintained in your TMF, therefore facilitating easier document management and regulatory inspections. Some sponsors adopt the TMF reference model in full, others adapt it to meet their own internal SOPs and procedures and use it as a reference alongside their own filing structure. And at MCRI, we have used the TMF reference model, but we have adapted that to suit our study. So by doing so, we've ensured that the 11 zones are in there, but it's generally an expanded model. And CDISC now provide and maintain the TMF reference model, and I've just got the reference there for those that are interested in looking at that a little bit later. So what are the specific requirements when considering an APT filing structure? So the first thing is TMFs should have a modular or dynamic organisation. So that means that it should be structured to allow for easy addition of new independent treatment arms and domains without affecting the structures of the existing ones, and often separating out your core or your master documents from your domain-specific documents. It's nice for it to adhere to the TMF reference model. So any filing index should ensure that the 11 zones, so for example, your regulatory, site management, safety sections, are consistently managed, even if the trial adds new elements or new domains. There must be robust document and version control and also document linking. And so because amendments in APTs are frequent and varied, the TMF requires robust control and mapping to efficiently connect each amendment, regulatory submission and HREC approval to the particular domain that relates to. Lots of countries and lots of sites involved, so therefore the TMF must handle varying requirements across multiple sites and countries, particularly when new countries are initiated and as the platform grows. It is not uncommon for in-country regulatory requirements to vary globally, and the TMF and ISF must account for these variations. Simplified site level tracking. So again, an easy way to ensure that there's an automated link between documents that are in your trial master file and your site level files. And this is the aim here is to reduce any administrative burden on sites. A traceable decision log should be considered and maintained within the TMF, and this should be in a fixed section to enable the documentation of any key decisions. So things such as statistical simulations and rationale behind adaptive changes, again, which is critical for regulatory audits. Real-time document management. So because of the rapid nature of your platform trials, essential records must be uploaded and QC'd in real time to avoid backlog and ensure that it's inspection ready at any moment. And the last thing is obviously flexible user control and user roles. So the system must support complex collaborations, relationships, allowing varied levels of access to sponsors, trial monitors, research teams, clinical sites, and ensuring that only relevant users have access to the relevant folders. Okay, so at MCRI, we've been very lucky to have access and use of Florence eBinders now for some time. Florence is a compliant and validated document management system meeting all GCP and international data protection standards. We first implemented Florence back in 2020, and I've had the benefit of using Florence eBinders for a large international RCT since its inception. Using this experience, I have therefore leveraged this experience and therefore we've tried to develop a suitable filing structure for our platform trials. I must reiterate that we are still piloting this and it is likely to change as we start recruiting and we identify more efficiencies that will help our teams. So the functionality of Florence eBinders allows for changes to the filing structure to be made once the study is operational and active. And so it's really actually quite simple to make big changes or large changes. And hence we'll be using this for our platform trials. So at MCRI, we maintain the following filing hierarchy. So we have what's called our sponsor level files. So these are our TMF. And this is managed by the MCRI APT trial team and contains all of the documents, i.e. master and study-wide documents, in which belong to the sponsor for the conduct of a platform trial. And if you have a look there on the top right-hand side, this is the landing page for our Bandicoot APT, and you clearly see that we have divisions there of our filing structure. The second lot of files that we maintained are what we call site information files. So again, these are managed by the MCRI platform trial teams and contain all site-specific and related documents. So for example, ethics approvals for each site, site-specific consent forms, any regulatory approvals relating to that site that don't relate to other centres, governance approvals, protocol signature pages, all of those, fully executed agreements. So it's important to note here that we do not file these in our trial master file simply because they are site specific, and trying to maintain a trial master file including all of your centres is cumbersome and you will have a lot of documents. And for ease of audit, inspection, whether those be internal audits as well, we have decided that we will separate out our site files and not file those in our trial master file. And the third level is what we call site level files. So these are investigator site files, which are the responsibility of our participating trial site to manage. These ISFs are deployed to our participating trial sites and managed by the participating site trial team and contains all essential documents that sites must maintain in their ISF according to GCP. MCRI platform teams and trial monitors access the site's ISF remotely to share documents and undertake monitoring activities, and we support all of our trial teams with providing Florence training and troubleshooting any problems. Our monitors also assist with filing essential records in the site's ISF to ensure compliance, and these are usually missing documents that are identified during our routine monitoring visits and so forth. Okay, so our APT filing index. So we'll talk about this now. Okay, so again, it's based on the TMF reference model and it's aligned to our needs. So you'll notice here on the left-hand side, this is just a partial vision snapshot of our TMF. It actually goes up to 24 sections. Clearly, the 11 zones are located there, but we've expanded this to suit our needs and ease of filing. It allows for a flexible and dynamic approach, which means that new domains and subfolders can be added at any time, and informs part of any sponsor-related audit or inspection. So if MCRI as a sponsor is ever audited, the only records that will be reviewed are those appearing in the trial master file and our site information file. The investigator site files are not monitored or audited. They form part of any site audit that happens. Okay, so if we look at one of the folders, so for example, our protocol and protocol amendment folder, that once you click on that, that gets broken down into subfolders. And again, we can add any subfolders as needed. And you can see here for Bandicoot, we've already set it up with a platform protocol and a domain protocol. So we, again, maintaining that clear delineation between protocols. Florence eBinders allows us to import filing structures via Excel. So this is a snapshot of what our filing structure looks like in Excel, which means that moving forward, if we do make a decision to change our template file structure, we can do so in Excel and then import that filing structure moving forward for our new projects. Projects that are active means that we just need to manually go into Florence and make those changes. But everything is essentially, we've developed this in Excel, which allows for quick and easy changes, and Florence allows for importing of Excel documents to create those structures. Again, if you click on folder 3, which is unfortunately not visible there, you'll see that we have clearly broken down between platform and domain each of those subsections. So for protocol version tracker, we will maintain a protocol version tracker not only for the platform or the core master protocol, we will do that for all of our protocols within our domains and so forth. Yes, so that's essentially what it looks like in Excel. If we move across to our site information folder files, again, based on the TMF reference model and aligned to our needs. Reminder that site investigator files or information files are our responsibility, so the responsibility of the sponsor. And we maintain separation by filing all site-related documents in the site's corresponding SIF and not the TMF. Both the TMF, as I said previously, both the TMF and the SIF will form part of any sponsor-related audit and inspection. And of course, it's electronically archived at the end of the trial along with the TMF. Now, Bandicoot doesn't have a lot of sites established in Florence at the moment, so I've taken a snapshot of what a landing page for your site investigator file would look like for multiple sites. So here we've got a list of all the Oz sites and the EU sites operating or participating in this study. And if you were to click on, for example, the Royal Women's Hospital, it will bring up, again, our standard template filing structure for an SIF, and that will be across the board for all of our sites that have a folder present in that site information file. So again, promotes standardization, promotes harmonization. It means that if you've got lots of members in your team that are assisting and helping with filing or need to locate a document, they know exactly where to go to in accordance with our file structure. And lastly, our investigator site file index. So again, we develop this and then we train our centres and then we deploy an ISF in Florence to our sites, and it's managed by our trial site teams. We access these ISFs for the purposes of remote monitoring, and again, they will form part of any site-related audit or inspection. At the end of the trial, sites are provided with an electronic copy of their ISF for the at the time of archiving. This will be a zip file where they can keep locally, but alternatively, we will file everything in our long-term archiving platform as well at the end of the trial for the site as well. So just here on the right there, you will see that when you click on investigator site file, Royal Children's Hospital for the Bandicoot study, we've broken down the filing again into platform and domain, again trying to distinguish those documents. We click on domain 1, again our standard filing structure will appear again to promote standardization and harmonization. Okay, so what are some efficiencies of Florence eBinders and why are we using this system? And it's simply because it's a compliant and validated system. There's time and workflow optimization, reduced administration burden. It allows for remote monitoring, has a neat little monitor review module, which allows you to allows monitors to raise queries directly into Florence and get those addressed on documents or essential records that may be missing or need to be updated or expired. It has compliant e-logs. So, for example, delegation of authority logs, training logs, monitoring visit logs, you can build those straight into Florence and capture those rather than trying to run around and get signatures on a paper delegation log. Compliant e-signatures, it executes some compliant e-signatures, so facilitates signing of documents really quickly. And of course, it audit logs and it has capabilities to integrate with other systems. So hence why we are using Florence eBinders. So when considering an APT specific filing structure or filing index, what are the benefits of it? So of course, harmonisation and standardisation promotes this across sponsor and site level documents. For platform trials where there are multiple interventions and appendices, it organises domain specific appendices or sub-protocols for different treatment arms in a standard granular way and able to track each interventions unique informed consent, regulatory approvals and safety reportings, and our inbuilt trackers help with that as well. It supports larger, more complex governance frameworks, including multiple DSMCs and steering committees, and obviously you can use that to account for documentation that may change over time. Sponsor versus investigator content, so it allows for clear delineation between central or sponsor managed trial master file documents and those that are a responsibility of the site. And of course, granular tracking of documents across platforms versus domains and ease of recall. And what I mean by that is a well thought out and maintained document management system maintains accountability of documentation and will save you a lot of time and headaches in the future when you're trying to locate that pesky one document that you so desperately need by maintaining and using a standard index, and all of your team is trained on the same index. It will essentially streamline things in the future and help for document recall. Now, I think that's the end of the presentation. What I will show you, I'll stop sharing here and I'll actually show you what our filing structure looks like. So I've just swapped to a Excel sheet. So if you have a look here at the bottom, I'll try and make this a bit bigger. The first tab here is what we have developed for our TMF. And again, based on those 11 zones for the TMF reference model. This column here are the high level folders. So for example, folder 1 will be all the details of our central trial team. And these are the subfolders appearing in folder 1. And if we head on down, we've got relatively, I think there's 24 in total. They're all broken down into our site-specific, to align with our site-specific SOP. So we have a section for project management, section for protocol and protocol amendments. And within each subfolder, you will see we've clearly delineated between version trackers or protocol versions between the platform and the domain. And again, these can all, we've essentially, the template essentially stops at one domain only. But because this, obviously the perpetual nature of platform trials, you can go in and add any subfolders at your leisure, providing you're following the same nomenclature. If we head on down, again, really, really simple. We've just got, again, delineation between master and protocol. So all of the sections down here relate to our filing structure. And then we have the same for our site information file, a bit bigger. And then our investigator site file as well. So I'm happy to share this with anyone, but it really with anyone just to get an idea of what documents we are maintaining. But it's all essentially developed in Excel, and we import this file structure when we need to create a new binder in Florence. Any questions before I move on?
Yeah, I had a question, Laura.
Yeah.
So with your platform ISF versus your domain ISF, is your platform ISF then quite consistent across all your sites? And then it's really your domain ISF that differs between sites?
Correct. So
Yep.
until we know which of our participating trial sites is participating in which domain, right? We need to work that out. So, for example, RCH is for Bandicoot will be participating in domain 1, 2, and 3. So their ISF will be set up with domain 1, 2, and 3. But our site in Adelaide may only be participating in domain 1 and 3, and so we'll set up the ISF. Yes, so there's a lot of tailoring to suit the site's requirements. But we capture that information in our feasibility stage, so we know how to set up the investigator site file for that site. Yeah.
But your platform ISF is would basically be the same between
all
sites. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Terrific.
It says, yeah. So I'll quickly share what it looks like in Florence. So we'll go to Bandicoot. Now, so again, these are sponsor files maintained by the sponsor. So our investigator site file. So for Royal Children's Hospital, you'll see that the platform ISF and the domain ISF are there because we know they're participating in domain 1. We will add additional domains as needed. But this subfolder here is a template.
Yes. Okay.
And that
that's
will
what I was
be
asking.
duplicated, correct, across all of our 30 participating trial sites or whoever end up. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Thank you.
And again, we still need to pilot this, so we're hoping that we don't need to make too many changes. We can only, I guess, foresee challenges as much as we can, and until we actually start using this, we may need to make additional changes. The good thing with Florence, Claire, there's a question.
Sorry, trying to unmute. So you're going to be having the same documents in the your ISF for the site that you're holding on to, and then the platform and the domain will also have overlapping documents in them?
It depends, correct. It depends on this. So it depends on the site and what domains they are participating in. So if they're participating in all domains, then yes, there will be overlap. If the domains are really different and the domains have different research teams involved at the site, and I will use Bandicoot as an example. So for example, domain 1 for Bandicoot, and Caitlin, please jump in if I get any of this wrong, is a physiotherapy, whereas domain 3 is fecal microbiome transplant. The delivery team at site is going to be very different. You'll have a physio team for domain 1, which will have its own delegation log, because that team will be completely different to the team delivering domain 3 in the FMT domain. So you need to consider that as well. Delegation logs, we have to pilot. We need to better understand who our teams are at site, what the overlap is, and whether we can have one delegation log for the entire platform, or whether we also need to break this down, for example, into domain-specific roles and responsibilities. Because some domains might have pharmacy involved, others will not have pharmacy involved at all. And so really different delivery teams at site that we need to capture who's involved. I don't know whether the Grace and the SNAP team can give us an overview of how that's managed for SNAP in terms of delegations, and when you've got different teams at site doing different things, is it one delegation log, or have you actually made it domain specific? But yes, there is overlap. The beauty with Florence is that you can shortcut documents. So if you have a central document somewhere, then you can shortcut that out to your site files. And part of our training for site teams is that we will train them the same way. So if there is a document that's relevant across everything, then the option is you can just file it in the platform and then note in your ISF that it's in your domain ISF that it's in the platform ISF, And the way that you do that, and coming back to the changes with E6R3, is that we have a filing index that it's the first document in each folder, and basically tells us which records are sitting outside of the ISF or the TMF.
Okay, and so
yeah,
the site don't see the SIF.
no, correct. So I will show you so for the polar trial, we've got 28 sites operating around the world. I maintain these, and my sites maintain this. So if you open up investigator site file, you'll see there's an individual folder for each of my sites around the world. They are responsible for maintaining everything in that. I only access this binder for training purposes, which I'm showing you now. Usually I don't have visibility into any of the investigator site files, and my trial monitor, when she's monitoring that site remotely, will switch on her permissions to be able to see the, say, investigator site file in Amsterdam, and only then will she have the right permissions to be able to access anything in that binder.
So if there's a protocol amendment, my understanding was that you would be putting it into the folders for them so that they could then view it. But that's not going to be the case then if you don't touch their ISFs. Sorry, Claire, was it Claire? Sorry? Yeah, sorry.
You absolutely can. So I have an agreement with all of my 28 sites that we will assist, the sponsor will assist with filing. And so, yes, sometimes we will upload a document into their ISF and request their signature. So that's acceptable. But at the end of the day, GCP states that ISF maintenance is the responsibility of the site investigator. If there is ever a site level audit, the TMF and the SIF will not be audited. The auditors will only ever view and audit the investigator site file for that centre. And they need to ensure that everything, as per GCP, is in that binder. So I had questions where, it's duplication of effort, there's documents across 3 levels. There isn't really. Your trial master file, I have only master documents in here. All of my site level and site specific consent forms are located under each site in their site file. So I know if I need to access the current consent form at the Royal Women's Hospital, I can go and get that. And also it's the responsibility of the site to maintain their current consent form in their investigator site file. Sally, I think you have a question. Yeah.
Thanks,
Sally?
Laura. Yes, thank you. Wonderful. I'm curious to find out how you got Florence funded and what the costs are. Was that sort of centrally supported by your institution, or did you put sort of funding in the grant application, or just in terms of how this is supported and what sort of costs you're seeing?
So in 2020, when I first started, I asked our trial centre, I said, how do people maintain their investigator site files and TriMaster files? And they were like, oh, we just use the network drive.
SharePoint or something,
Not even back then, not even. It was the network drive. And I'm like, that doesn't really work for me. Can someone order me 30 binders because I'm going to start keeping everything by paper? And then COVID hit. And at MCRI, we run an extensive amount of commercially sponsored trials. So therefore, we were getting all these requests from our monitors to remote access our medical record and also our folders, but we didn't have everything was paper. So because of the need for this remote monitoring, we basically just put a business case forward and said, we need this. But the way that the Florence work is that because we run a lot of commercially sponsored studies, we actually put the cost of Florence back to the sponsor or the CRO. So they pay for that. For investigator initiated, we charge investigators a nominal fee. Really, it's a one-off fee to set up their binder, get their staff trained, and they can have one site or they can have 30 sites. That doesn't matter. It's just one fee at the beginning, and usually that's more palatable because it is low. So I think it's like $1,000 for our IITs. But in saying that, our cost recovery happens through our commercially sponsored studies. Yeah.
And
so,
just one of the follow-up question. When you were deciding to go with Florence, did you guys do, scope the
vendor
market
assessment?
and
Yes.
in terms
So we
of
looked
coming to
at-
the decision on Florence versus SiteDocs versus Weaver or versus anything? Do you know what I mean?
Correct. Yes. We looked at SiteDocs, Montreal, and Florence, and I think that was it, or there might have been someone else. I think Viva was too expensive, so we didn't even really do a complete vendor assessment there.
Yeah.
And so we looked at functionality, efficiencies, costs, compliance, and Florence just came out on top. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah. I should also say that in some instances, because again, we are the sponsor and we're asking our sites to use this platform, if a site comes to us and says, no, we have our own Florence account, or no, we use SiteDocs, or no, we use another validated platform, then that's their right. So for example, in Melbourne, Peter Mac uses SiteDocs. So whenever we collaborate with them, they don't use Florence. We don't set them up in ISF. They use SiteDocs, then we ask to gain access for remote monitoring. So then we get trained up on how to use that, get permissions set up, and then we would access their investigator site file remotely. So it really is up to the site how they want to manage it. But for us, we had a need to manage multi-centre international clinical trials and allow for remote monitoring. So this was just the best way for us forward. Yeah.
So much.
Thanks, Laura. It's really interesting how you say the design of the eTMF is really for your use case, because for the trials that we're running currently as it stands, but this will probably change, is that the same teams do manage each domain. So the split out in that way isn't as applicable to us, but that may change.
Correct.
So it's actually a good point.
Correct. I mean, and again, we haven't really actively started using this, and to try and foresee and think about every scenario. And I know for Bandicoot, they are really different teams at site that deliver the intervention. I don't know how to manage delegation logs. Is it one master? Is it per domain? So we need to look at that. But
yeah.
It'll
be really interesting. We might need to do a follow-up talk of once you get going to be like, what did we learn? What did we change? Once you're actively using this structure, I'd be really curious to know. There's just some questions in the chat quickly. I know that we need to wrap up this meeting. I think you've answered the cost question, which Sally asked, and Sophie's asked that as well. Enmore asked, do you have regional coordinating centres, and do they also access their files in Florence?
Yes. So for the polar trial, we have a regional coordinating centre at University of Oxford, and they are responsible for maintenance of what we call I'll quickly share my screen again, a UK TMF. And so we've got 7 sites in the UK. I'm sorry, I'm on a different computer, and the mouse and screen thing is doing my head in. Anyway, okay, here we go. So exactly that. So I have a subset, so a small TMF to suit my UK collaborators, my regional coordinating centre. So this is my trial master file, our standard index. As you can see, there's quite a lot. But when we developed the TMF UK, it's just a subset. So they are only really responsible for obtaining ethics and HRA approval in the UK for us, facilitating what they call R&D capacity and capability assessment, which is just research governance authorization in fancy words. And so they've really just got a subset. So when we were setting things up and they asked about the TMF, I said, well, we're using Florence eBinders. So the easiest thing for them to do was for me to create a TMF UK with a subset of folders that they're going to be responsible for, and all the UK regulatory documents, amendments and so forth, they file in there for me. And so I keep copies of the regional coordinating centres training certificates and things like that as well that we need to keep as sponsor oversight. But yes, if you have other regional coordinating centres that are involved in the conduct of the trial, you can all collaborate and they will have access to the same board. same folders as you. You can just ensure that they're trained adequately and provide them with permissions to be able to see the folders that they need and nothing more. Yeah. So my UK team only really see this folder here because that's all they need. That's all they're responsible for. Yes.
Okay, thanks, Laura. I might need to wrap it up here as we've gone over time, but there's obviously been some great questions. I encourage anyone who has any follow-up questions for Laura to post them in the Gaggle forum. If you look at the agenda at the bottom, there's information about how to do that, so we can continue the conversation offline there. Laura, that was a really valuable presentation. We're completely overhauling our ETMF this year. That's the goal, at least. So I'm just wondering, would it be okay if we shared your slides to the group just so we have that?
I've already sent them to Bernie, but yeah, please feel free.
Bernie, and if you're able to circulate them, that would be great.
Yeah, and I have shared our filing structure with a few people already. I know I've sent it to Renee, and I've also sent it to Hannah from Monash. So we're very happy to share it. It really only suits Florence, but just more for you can understand what we're filing and how we're filing it. Very happy to share that. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Laura. Really appreciate it. That was a really interesting talk. So I'll just quickly wrap up this meeting. We are planning for another webinar mid this year, but we'll send out a calendar invite for that as well as information on the next webinar. But as I said, the Gaggle forum's there if anyone wants to continue that conversation offline. And yeah, I hope the rest of you enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. And thank you so much for coming. Thanks, everyone. Bye.